Hey guys, it's Attilee. Let's talk about this last episode of Steven Universe, because I don't know about you guys, but Rose episodes seem to get me like really worked up, but also like to the point where I can't articulate my thoughts about them because there's just so much. Rose as a character is always so much to absorb, and there's a lot working with her, and I think really this past episode really keyed that up for me and almost made me aware of the fact that I get really worked up when Rose is on screen in a similar way to Steven is. But this episode was Storm in the Room. It was very Steven Rose centric, that sort of catalysing off of Connie and Dr. Maheshwaran, excuse me. Dr. Maheshwaran's moment there. Dr. Maheshwaran is very, very late in getting Connie picked up from Steven's house, which, if that doesn't further cement the fact that I deeply align myself with Connie, I don't know what does. I had the worst anxiety as a kid whenever my parents would be very late picking me up from something and wouldn't be able to get in contact with me. Connie's answers for the last Mad Libs that they played, filling in all kinds of doomsday scenarios and thoughts as she's playing out her mom's own death in her head, as a big time little Attilee fun thing to do if my parents were late getting me. Any ambulance that would drive by, oh god, I could go on about my runaway imagination. But this episode is about Steven, and to an extent, his imagination, Rose's room, picking up with wanting to see Rose. Things in the room seem to continually function the way that we've seen them prior to. I think I saw one or two conversations being like, Rose is finally alive in the room, and I don't want to burst someone's bubble, but Rose seemed to be a parody of Rose to me, which isn't a bad thing. Sometimes a parody can help you work out a lot of feelings, and I think that's what Rose in this episode sort of helped steer Steven in the right direction towards. Rose in this episode said things like, all sports are marvelous, which is just bonkers. I mean, maybe Rose would say something like that, but just Rose is a character that's very hard to pin down because we will never meet her. And so having this idyllic fantasy meeting within Rose's room between Steven and Rose was a great fulfillment, and one that I think a lot of fans have been wanting to see for a really long time. Getting to see them converse loosely as well as sort of have a confrontation on Steven's end towards Rose. I don't know, it felt productive, even if maybe we didn't see it necessarily go anywhere. Down the road, I think Steven's approaches towards certain conflicts, particularly Rose-initiated conflicts with the Diamonds, I think is going to be a lot different. Steven's actions within the past bomb were very impulsive and immediate. Things needed to change, and he didn't need to think about a plan, he just needed to do. And I think a lot of the conversation with Rose seemed to imply that it's okay for Steven not to know what he needs to do next, but he also needs to consider that it's important to make plans like Rose did and to try and be that leader. That's maybe not the answer that I think Steven's always looking for. I don't think that Steven's always looking for a leadership role because that's particularly weighing for any character, especially a child. But coming to the realization that, well, sometimes it feels easy to resent Rose as a mother figure who's absent, as a leader figure who's suddenly absent from a group. That resentment is raw and real, and Steven hasn't been able to really vent it except for to the gems, and that isn't really conflict resolution there. It's just sort of continuing to feed and fester on this sort of anger towards someone you've never met. And I think getting to sort of channel that towards his mom, as well as to fulfill those mother-son bonds that he so greatly misses. When Steven curled up on Rose's knee and is sort of like, this is nice, I swear I could feel my heart breaking, because it's something he'll never get. And it's something that Steven as a character is this really great, kind child who wants to make things right in the world as best he can so deserves. He gets so much love from so many characters, but there's always going to be the love that's absent from his mother, at least physically. It can never replace the same kind of love that she could give if she was like Dr. Maheshwaran. This episode was great, though. I'm glad we got to take a beat with Steven just by himself, in a sense. Getting to continue to catch up with Connie was nice, even though that was just sort of an introductory to this episode as well. And I think this was an excellent continuation of the reflection following of the big Steven Bomb 5. This episode was one, again, that I've been looking forward to for a while, that I think a lot of fans had sort of speculated was likely going to happen given the content and the nature of Rose's room. And I'm glad that Rose, by my understanding and my interpretation of this episode, didn't seem to be fully sentient. Pretty much any Rose's room episode seems to elicit a lot of strong emotions. I definitely welled up for this one. Not a full-on cry. That doesn't happen a lot with Steven Universe, but that doesn't happen with a lot of media for me anyway. But this episode was solid, and a solid step forward for Steven to continue to move past the shadow that is his mother hanging over him constantly, and to start considering leadership qualities and other kind of thoughts about the gems as a group with him in it going forward, I think. I think this is a great step forward for Steven, and it's really something that he needed to take a moment for, particularly following the kidnapping of his father by the Diamonds. I'm going to be interested to see how he handles conflict moving on from here. I don't think, given the next 2 episodes' descriptions, we're going to be sort of tampering back from gem conflict and into Beach City conflict, which is a perfect upswing for this. That's going to be interesting. To see how he handles some serious dynamic conflict as it comes towards him, because it's coming. There seems to be continuing Earth-centric dilemmas, potentially cluster-related things. It's very up in the air, it's very loose, and it's very Diamond-centric, and I'm excited about it. But at the same time, I'm really looking forward to next week's episodes, or the coming week's episodes, I should say, as they're more Beach City-centric. I love Beach City episodes, I love the Beach City citizens, and even though he's not everyone's favorite, I really like Ronaldo, and we'll get to see a lot more of him next week, it sounds like. So, what was your guys' favorite parts of this episode? I had a lot of thoughts, and maybe I didn't even touch on some of your thoughts on it. I'd love to hear about them in the comments down below. Alright, until next week, you guys, until next Tuesday, I will see you later. Bye!